This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Kuwait's Emir Sheikh Sabah al-Ahmad al-Sabah accepted the resignation of the Kuwaiti cabinet on Monday, ending the war of inquiries that the parliament launched against the government of Nasser Mohammed al-Sabah. The Emir asked the cabinet to continue in a caretaker capacity until a new government is formed. Amidst the political instability and lack of visibility in the road ahead, the Kuwaiti public expressed resentment over the status quo. This news comes after dozens of Kuwaitis held a rally in front of the parliament today in protest over the ongoing political war between the parliament and the government, a war that is leading the country toward a dark tunnel. From Kuwait, our correspondent Ahmed Al-Unaizi reports.
Starting today, the Kuwaiti cabinet will serve as a caretaker government. The government, however, was absent from today's session, which was called for by the Kuwaiti National Assembly. The Kuwaiti caretaker government announced that it will not cooperate with the parliament. This has prompted the Speaker of the Parliament to adjourn today's session. Many people are expressing disappointment and speculation over what may happen next.
I'm sorry to inform you, but due to reasons that you are all aware of, the government has abruptly submitted its resignation. His Highness the Emir accepted the resignation, making it easy on us.
What may happen on the political front depends by and large on the decision of the Kuwaiti Emir, and everyone here is anxiously waiting to hear it. The solution may come in the context or outside the context of the Constitution. However, some observers believe the only solution is for the Emir to suspend the parliament, a move that is favored by some who took part in today's protest.
I want to tell the members of the National Assembly, God willing, the people of Kuwait were able to help pull off the mask of the parliament. I hereby call on the Kuwaiti people to make the right choice.
Unfortunately, all members of the parliament have diplomatic immunity, although they tend to forget that they do not have the immunity from public opinion.
Amidst the consecutive political crises that have been rocking the country, the Kuwaiti people continue to anxiously wait for the desired political stability. Over the years, the Kuwaiti people have witnessed a series of political crises with no solutions appearing on the horizon anytime soon. Happy New Year, a phrase that Kuwait's parliament speaker Jassim Al-Khurafi used in today's session, which the government didn't attend. This phrase may suggest that the MPs will not be returning anytime soon to the National Assembly. Ahmed Al-Unaizi, IBA TV, Kuwait.
ينضم إلينا الكاتب الصحفي الدكتور عبد الواحد الخلصان. دكتور بداية باتت هناك خيارات عديدة.
From Kuwait, we are joined by journalist and writer Dr. Abed Wahid Al-Hassan. The Emir of Kuwait has several options on the table. Which option will he likely adopt?
مساء الخير. من الصعب التكهن بخيارات سمو الأمير، هي خيارات خاصة بسمو الأمير.
Good evening. It's very hard to tell which option His Highness the Emir will adopt. This will be his own decision. No one can tell what course of action the Emir may take. Some of the options facing the Emir are dissolving the parliament or the resignation of the government, which has already been accepted by the Emir. The current Prime Minister was asked to act in a caretaker capacity until a new Prime Minister is sworn in and a new government is formed. However, the political showdown in Kuwait is intensifying. The country lacks political stability due to the showdown between the parliament and the government. Yesterday, the government delivered a message saying that it will not cooperate with the parliament. We are now dealing with a rather tense political situation, and no one can predict its outcome. According to some Kuwaiti newspapers, there appears to be a growing concern on the political front regarding a plan to suspend the parliament and bypass the constitution. This means in plain Kuwaiti language, unconstitutional dissolution of the parliament. Many Kuwaitis fear that the the country may reach a political stalemate, thus taking the country into an undesignated direction. Unfortunately, there have been several indications suggesting that the country is moving towards a democratic crisis, amidst the ongoing war of inquiries raging between the parliament and the government.
The Israeli cabinet is holding an emergency session today to discuss the fate of the prisoner swap deal with the Hamas movement in return for the release of Gilad Shalit. Before the session, Eli Yashai, the Israeli deputy prime minister, said that it appears that the current government will not be able to conclude a deal with Hamas for the release of the Israeli soldier prisoner Gilad Shalit.
Al Jazeera's correspondent in Cairo has learned that the deal is currently entangled in a new format. The shuttle talks between Egypt and Israel, made by the two Israeli officials in charge of negotiations, proved to be unsuccessful.
The sit-in activities of the family of the Israeli soldier prisoner in Gaza have not succeeded in pushing the Israeli government to make a firm decision on the prisoner swap deal with Hamas. Now, the current ministers have said that they are waiting for this decision to come from the next government headed by Benjamin Netanyahu. Many in Israel rule out that the next government, which is described as extremist, will make that decision. Israel was quick to talk about the failure to achieve a prisoner swap deal with the Palestinian side after its envoys returned from Cairo, saying that they were surprised by new conditions presented by Hamas. Hamas denied this. An Egyptian source also denied this to an Egyptian newspaper, saying that Hamas did not change its positions, it did not propose new conditions, and that the differences between the two sides has to do with the number of prisoners who will be released and who Israel intends to expel from the West Bank.
The Israeli delegates returned from Cairo with negative results. Both sides did not agree on two issues. One of them relates to defining the list of Palestinian prisoners, and the second, which is the main issue, has to do with the dozens of prisoners who Israel insists cannot return to the West Bank.
Some in Israel expected the Israeli government to pass the Shalit file to the next government because the amount of internal pressure and the ceiling of expectations rose to the point of being described as intolerable. This gave Hamas the ability to maneuver and improve the conditions in its favor. Meanwhile, the Palestinian side says that the maneuver was originally made by Olmert, who said that he was acting on the basis that Hamas may be forced to accept any offer before the hardline Netanyahu government comes into power.
About the failure of this deal that they are talking about, let it fail. We will be patient. We have Shalit. Those who have the upper hand can take their time.
Until this hour, and amidst all of this, it appears that the only common ground is that the public on both sides is in a state of anxiety, especially on the Palestinian side. Many Palestinians say that one cannot compare between one Israeli soldier prisoner and more than 11,000 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails waiting to be freed.
Joining me from Ramallah is Al Jazeera bureau chief Walid Al-Amari. Walid, amidst this framework of suspicion and complaints, has this deal become impossible, at least during the term of the current government?
This is how the situation appears. The emergency cabinet meeting, which is being held at this time, will listen to the offer brought back by the two Israeli envoys. They will make a decision on whether there is room to continue with the negotiation process with Hamas to reach a prisoner swap deal. However, the statements of some Israeli ministers indicate that the Israeli government may be able to accept what Hamas has demanded and conclude this deal. This means that Hamas's position and the release of 450 prisoners who have been sentenced for life and long sentences has been in place since the start of the negotiation process nearly 2 or 3 years ago until this day. It means that Israel has not been able to change Hamas's position. Therefore, there is no other way than to accept this position as much as possible.
Dozens of contractors and operators of bulldozers and other heavy construction equipment in West Jerusalem held a demonstration demanding protection from the Israeli police and citizens who've been attacking them since the events that happened recently in Jerusalem. Bulldozer owners said they constantly feel their lives are threatened when they drive in the streets of Jerusalem because they will be attacked if they were involved in traffic accidents.
حصلت الجزيرة على شريط مصور تتبنى فيه مجموعة.
Al Jazeera has obtained a videotape for a group that calls itself the Imad Mughniya Martyrs Group. It declared responsibility for the killing of 2 Israeli policemen by attacking their patrol unit with gunfire in the Jordan Valley last Sunday. Al Jazeera could not verify the authenticity of this tape from another independent source.
In the name of God, the merciful and most compassionate, God is the one who punishes, not humans. We, the Imad Mughniya Martyrs Group, declare responsibility for the killing of the 2 Zionists in the Jordan Valley, which took place on the anniversary of Imad Mughniya's martyrdom. What will be coming next is even greater. Victory comes only from God.
In Jerusalem, the Shalit family today moved its protest from outside the Prime Minister's residence to the Prime Minister's office, where the cabinet is meeting at this hour to consider its position. IBA's Eli Wagalanter is just back from that protest. He joins me now in the studio. Welcome, Eli.
Yes, Yochanan. A few hundred protesters are there now while the cabinet meets inside. As you said, these are mostly youngsters who are chanting slogans demanding that Shalit be released immediately. It's been an emotionally draining day for the Shalit family, obviously. Noam and Aviva Shalit, the parents of Gilad, were sitting under a tree right by the entrance to the Prime Minister's office with their friends surrounding them. Everyone was very subdued. You can see a look of despondency on their faces over the cold, hard fact that the deal they thought was so close has now apparently slipped away. Noam Shalit spoke briefly to the press a short time ago. Let's hear it.
Well, I was informed that Hamas withdrew for some of the understanding that had been achieved before, and he increased his demand. He increased his demand, and well, we think that I would recommend the Hamas to now to hurry up and cut a deal now before the new government will be formed, because he won't get a better deal with the new government, and he has many things to lose if he will not conclude this deal now. And also the Palestinian people in Gaza Strip may lose a lot of things if the Hamas won't reach a deal now.
Do you believe Prime Minister Netanyahu will act differently in negotiations with Hamas?
I won't speculate about that.
Are you still confident in the release of your son? Have you had more hope a few years ago, a few days ago?
No, we go on with our campaign. We go on with our campaign near the Prime Minister's residence, and we keep demanding current Prime Minister Olmert, which handles this issue, this crisis personally, to resolve this issue and to bring back Gilad before he steps down of his office.
Earlier today, I was in the Knesset and asked some MKs to share their thoughts about the failure of the Shalit deal.
My understanding is that Hamas is not flexible at all. Israel, as far as I can see, has gone a long way towards the Hamas based on some pressure from inside, and maybe after 3 years we should become more flexible. But the Hamas is adamant. They haven't changed anything in what they asked from day one. And this is something which I understand is unacceptable to Israel.
And how do you feel about it?
I don't know enough about it, but if the head of the Shabak was in Cairo, and I believe he was told and asked to show some readiness, to be more, again, I'm using the same word, flexible towards the Hamas demand, and he came back empty-handed. I think this is the longest way we could have gone. Unfortunately, we were not successful.
Undeclared war between Israel and Jordan under the title Polluted Water. Jordan has closed Al-Iraqiya Dam, which feeds the King Abdullah Canal, as a way to push Israel into finding a tangible solution to the polluted water in Al-Yarmouk River.
Israel violates the peace agreement with Jordan by pumping polluted water into the Yarmouk River, which polluted thousands of cubic meters of water of the King Abdullah Canal, which is used for irrigation and drinking after being purified in the Zaid Water Treatment Center. Jordanian authorities were forced to close the water pipe that feeds the King Abdullah Canal due to the water pollution.
Water experts in Jordan Valley looked for the polluted section and diverted an estimated 70,000 cubic meters of polluted water towards the Dead Sea. The level of water in the canal was then increased so that water can be used properly.
Israel has violated the peace agreement with Jordan by pumping polluted water into the Yarmouk River. This is a clear violation, and Israel must find a solution to the polluted water. The Jordan Ministry of Water and Irrigation protested the Israeli actions, which must be followed by diplomatic protests by the Jordanian Foreign Ministry, so that Israel stops pumping polluted water and compensates Jordanians for the damages they have endured.
The Jordanian Minister of Water and Irrigation contacted the Israeli Minister of Infrastructure, Benjamin bin Abi al-Aser, and protested the pumping of polluted water. The Israeli minister vowed that he will solve the problem immediately. Israel compensated Jordan by pumping 80,000 cubic meters of water from the Tiberias Lake into the Jordanian side.
And it's in the interest of both sides that Jordan obtains clean water and that Israel does not lose its share of water.
This is not the first time Israel pumps polluted water into the Jordanian River. In 1998, Israel pumped polluted water, which poisoned dozens of Jordanian citizens. At the time, the Jordanian government was forced to resign due to the crisis. Jordanians did not change the distribution of drinking water in response to the water pollution, but they have become more vocal in their demands that Israel not repeat this kind of action and compensate them for water losses. Saad Al-Sinawi, Al-Arabiya, Amman.
Security sources in Iraq have confirmed that the military forces have surrounded the Ashraf military base camp, which is the center for the Mujahideen and Khalq terrorist group in the Diyala province northeast of Baghdad. These sources added that the Iraqi government will not go back on its decision to shut down the camp. The government emphasized that Al-Khalq group has two options, either to return to Iran or to go to a different country.
معسكر أشرف قصة تعود إلى بداية ثمانينيات القرن الماضي عندما آوى
The story of Al-Ashraf camp goes back to the beginning of the 80s, when Saddam Hussein's regime housed Al-Khalq terrorist group during the war against the Islamic Republic of Iran in the initial era of the Islamic Revolution.
هذه الجماعة في معسكراتها ومنها معسكر أشرف في محافظة ديالا شمال
The group remained at Al-Ashraf camp in the province of Diyala, northeast of Baghdad. This camp remained the center for the group, from which they facilitated the civilian uprising in southern Iraq in March of 1991. After Saddam's regime fell and the security returned in Iraq, demands to expel this group from Iraq continued. Internal Iraqi sources said that Iraqi soldiers surrounded the Ashraf camp after they've been warned and they refuse to evacuate. They added that the government will not go back on its decision to shut down the camp, and that the group has two options, either to go to a different country or to go back to Iran, as many others did.
والعودة إلى ذويهم كما حصل لكثير منهم في مرات سابقة.
In January, the Iraqi National Security Advisor, Mufwaq al-Rubayi, promised to close down the camp at the end of March. The camp is a base for 3,500 members of the group. It seems like the decision of the Iraqi government to shut down the camp has become firm.
ويبدو أن قرار الحكومة العراقية بإغلاق المعسكر أصبح أكثر حسما حيث أعلنت
Iraqi sources have announced that Iraqi forces have tightened their siege on the camp and that they were not allowing anyone to enter or exit the camp. Some Iraqi soldiers have indicated that they have instructions from Iraq's national security to shut down the camp. This matter was confirmed in an announcement issued by al-Rubayi's office on Friday.
بيان صدر عن مكتب الربيعي يوم الجمعة.
This will be the beginning of the end of the story of this terrorist group that has been operating illegally in Iraq for more than 25 years.
The Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki said that the chemical shelling of the city of Halabja and the genocide committed against thousands of its residents shows the true face of the former authoritarian regime. In observance of the painful tragedy, al-Maliki said that Iraq will not return to the era of dictatorship, which fueled religious, ethnic, and sectarian intolerance. Al-Maliki said that the people of Iraq have come together to honor the martyrs of Halabja. They came out to express their support to a state of institutions that is based on the constitutional principles of democracy and the freedom of expression.
When the smell of apples was turned into a smell of death and the green grass was turned into ashes, a mountain of sorrow was formed to embrace those killed in Halabja.
Now the smell of death has disappeared and a new spring has arrived filled with hope. The criminals are about to receive a fair judgment in Iraq's high court.
On March 16, 1988, a thick dark smoke persisted over the Iraqi city of Halabja. Instead of breathing the gentle breeze of life blowing from the flowers of spring, the residents of Halabja, including children, women, and the elderly, were forced to breathe air filled with chemical gas unleashed by Iraqi fighters. This came at a time when the people of Iraq had no control over their country's destiny, as the former regime decided to suffocate life out of Halabja. Some 21 years ago, it was very hard to see a human being standing on both feet in Halabja, as most of its residents were either killed or injured in the attack. Now that many years have passed since the crime was committed in Halabja, the criminals are locked up behind prison bars, getting ready to face their victims at the witness stand.
I was hit and taken to the area of Innab. I lost my eyesight in the attack.
Was it due to the shelling?
Yes, it was due to the shelling. I didn't have any problems prior to the shelling. I lost my eyesight due to the shelling.
نعم لم يكن لدي أي شكوى من عيوني وبعد القصف أصبت بالعمى.
As the Iraqi people remember the day of the tragedy, some believe that the reconstruction and development of Halabja and the rest of the Iraqi cities depend on the amount of government support being facilitated to these areas.
Halabja must be given the cultural value it deserves in Iraq's society. We must designate it as a historical landmark and build a memorial there in honor of those killed in the massacre. I believe that the residents of Halabja, along with other Iraqi cities, deserve the Medal of Honor for their bravery and sacrifice.
As we remember the tragedies of Halabja and Dajani, we must reflect on other tragedies witnessed across Iraq, in which the former regime has executed a policy of quelling and oppression against the Iraqi people. To the families and relatives of Iraqi victims, these commemorations are important, but not as important as seeing their cities being reconstructed and developed, which may help alleviate their pain.
He was murdered 3 decades ago in a coup, but the former Afghan leader Daoud Khan was finally honoured with a state funeral after his remains were discovered last year.
James Bays Hasmore, Afghanistan's first president and the last to preside over an era of peace and stability in the country.
Afghanistan is mourning a president, a leader who died 31 years ago. The funeral ceremony was held inside Kabul's presidential palace, the same palace where Daoud Khan was murdered during a Soviet-backed coup in 1978. President Daoud Khan was the man who turned Afghanistan into a democracy, but he was no democrat himself, assuming power by ousting his own cousin, the king. A key player on the international stage, in a country on the front line of the Cold War, he sought assistance from the Russians for much of his rule, but in the end he fell out of favour with the communists at home and in Moscow. The current president, Hamid Karzai, was at the funeral ceremony for Daoud and his brother. Nearly all his immediate family died with him in 1978. The location of their bodies a mystery until they were finally uncovered last year. Just one daughter escaped the massacre. She today was greeting mourners. The assassination of Daoud Khan is an event with deep significance for many Afghans. What followed was the Soviet invasion of this country, a bitter civil war here in Kabul, and then the arrival of the Taliban, events that cost millions of lives. Older Afghans say that Daoud's rule was the last time of real peace and stability in this country. Some who came to pay their respects say Afghanistan again needs a leader like Daoud.
He was a great man, and he resisted the enemies of Afghanistan, and all the people of Afghanistan remember him as a hero, as a leader, and as a very good Afghan.
After 30 years of war, Karzai's cabinet should find some people of the caliber of Daoud Khan. Then Afghanistan will end up prosperous.
After 3 decades dumped in an unmarked grave, a state burial for this controversial figure. His body finally laid to rest on a hill high above the capital city he used to rule.
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.